Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to League Chat with the Stat. I'm Stat, and mate, it is so good to be back for another week. Mate, what a crazy round of NRL we just had. Look, I'm joined by another special guest this week. Billy, how are you, buddy?
Yeah, look, it's a tough week, another tough week to be a Broncos fan, but it's good to have footy.
Mate, it's good to have you on here. And yeah, look, we'll definitely go into the Broncos in a few moments. Mate, we're going to start the episode, guys, just a little different this week. Billy and I have come up with a team of the round to start this week, just something a little different to the usual weeks. Bill, why don't we just run us through the team of the round?
Yeah, look, I mean, I thought there was a few good standout players, a few players who probably have been below their best for a while now and have come out to play. At fullback, I had Ryan Pappenhausen. I know it was a performance against the Warriors, but nonetheless, I thought his support play, his scoring, his assisting on plays, I thought it was great. Can't really fault him, and it's been a little while since we've seen him play like that, and with Munster getting injured early, it was good to see him step up and dominate. I also thought David Nofaluma is always really steady, always really solid. I thought he had a really good round against the Dogs this week.
Yeah,
Brett Morris, I was looking forward to seeing him play fullback for the Roosters, but he got moved to the centres out of all places and didn't look out of place at all. He had a hat-trick and I thought he was just good all round.
Yeah.
Joseph Leilua, he probably not associated with good performances, at least not recently, but
It's true.
a while ago he said he was the best centre in the league, and you know what, he was very good this week, so I'll give him some props. In a team that I don't think is as good as advertised, but they seem to be rolling at the moment, I thought Brian Tuttle for Penrith on the wing was outstanding.
Yeah, he was very good this weekend.
Him and Mansour helped start their sets really well, and I thought he just, in defence and attack, he was great.
Mansour didn't play this week. It was Brent Hayden, actually.
I know, but that 1-2 punch from the back this season has been good. It's good to see Mansour back in form, even though he missed this week. But I thought he's been good for a while now, and I thought this week was no different. Sean Johnson leading the league in try assists, surprisingly, considering how bad the Sharks are doing. But I thought he was great all over the park today. He really stood up against a weaker Manly team, made sure his team didn't lose. I thought he was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Nathan Cleary. He was a big difference maker. He almost didn't play. And I'm not even picking him because he was unwell and he nearly didn't play and he managed to play. I thought he was just great.
Yeah.
And without him, I don't think Penrith will win that game against Souths. The forwards, Adam Fanua-Blake, another 2 tries. And he seems to love playing against the Sharks, but obviously it wasn't enough, but he was just an animal this week. He's been an animal for a while, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him play rep footy at the end of this season. Don't think that would surprise anybody.
Yeah, big chance you're right, actually. Who'd you go for your hooker?
Look, Harry Grant, great young kid, obviously from the Storm system. I'd say they'd be upset they let him go, but obviously they got Cam Smith, they got Brandon Smith coming through, they got a few guys there, so I don't know how much they miss him, but the Tigers are definitely benefiting having him.
Oh yeah,
and he's right up the top, near the top of the Dally M leaderboard now, so he's killing it. I thought he had a great game. So did RCG for Para, and I mean, I think the Para forwards this week are unreal. Not a surprise, but I mean, tough forward pack to play against in the Raiders. They got obviously Papali and a few other big boys from England. And they're always very solid, but I thought RCG rolled through the middle really well. So did Lane and Madison as my second rowers. Looking around the league, I mean...
A dominated forward pack, eh?
Yeah, I mean, Viliami Kikau was a little bit quieter, even though I thought he was good this week. Some of the other big second rowers just, I don't know, they didn't do as much this week as the power forwards. And I think without the performance those forwards had, it would have been a very different outcome. They probably wouldn't have been able to hold Canberra out at the end.
Yeah.
But at lock, it's hard to go past Taumalolo. He dominated the Newcastle forward pack. And believe me, I saw that Newcastle forward pack firsthand destroy the Broncos and a few other teams, the Saifidi brothers, Matadia, Clemmer, the animals. And Taumalolo rolled through them like it was nothing for another 200-plus metre game. And they smashed them on the scoreboard too. So that was my team of the round.
Yeah, no, thanks for that.
A few new faces that you probably wouldn't have seen earlier this season who've come out to play this week, which was good to see.
Yeah.
Looks like they're finding their footing, so hopefully, the whole league continues to pick it up from here.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, thanks for that, Bill. That's much appreciated. Well, guys, we're going to get straight into the round that was round 7. Now, Panthers 20 defeating the Rabbitohs 12. Now, a few standouts for me was obviously Nathan Cleary being the difference in that whole game. There was a big talk of him coming out of hospital in the skin infection of cellulitis, which is pretty dangerous. I've had it a couple of times, so I kind of know what he's gone through.
Yeah.
But look, he was actually the difference maker. Another one, James Fisher-Harris, for me, would have been up in the forward pack. 24 hit-ups, 248 metres, 35 tackles, and he didn't even miss one. And he played an 80-minute game as well. So he was a standout for me. I thought Brent Naden, who jumped on the wing just right in the last minute, Josh Mansell sat out the game with a knee injury. Ivan Clear wanted to rest him. But Brent Naden came in and did a solid performance as well, had over 200 plus metres and scored a try, the first try for Penrith as well. So I thought they were good.
Cracker try, that one too. That was not an easy try.
No, it wasn't. So that was a kick out as well.
That was big, yeah.
Yeah, so, no, look, it was phenomenal. I think for me, the Rabbitohs, they really struggled. It looks like Damien Cook and Adam Reynolds weren't at their best. I think they had some niggling injuries.
Yeah, look, I mean, I like Cookie and Reynolds a lot, actually, to be honest. And I think they've both been a little bit below their best for a lot of the season.
Yeah.
With Cook, obviously, great out of dummy half. You'd think these new rules with the set restarts and guys tiring, coming back from a bit of a break would give him opportunities through the middle. But, yeah, he's been... I don't know if he's been as aggressive as he should be. I don't know if that's Wayne Bennett's system. And obviously being a Broncos fan, I wouldn't think so. But I mean, he's had his moments here and there, but not the Damien Cook we're used to. And I don't think he capitalised much this week either.
That's right.
With Penrith's tiring forwards, like you said, James Fisher-Harris, animal performance, but he played all 80 minutes.
Yeah.
So there were guys in the middle there that probably could have, at least drawn in and set up a few breaks through there. And I mean, actually, to start the second half, they actually had a really nice play that sent Bailey Sirinen through the middle.
Yeah,
great switch in play after going wide. They came back to the middle. So there were holes in the middle of the Penrith defence, I thought, because they matched up really well out wide. And I don't think Reynolds and Cook quite exploited that. And obviously, they're representative players. So, I mean, I think Souths really need to fix that moving forward because... They have a great roster and they're just not really producing, and I would know about that, obviously being a Broncos fan. But we need to see more out of those two.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think another one for me was Latrell Mitchell. Now I've been defending him here week after week, and he started to get a roll on, but they had 4 errors. They were crucial errors, especially at points in the attack. Didn't help that he got sin-binned as well, along with James Roberts towards the end. So Rabbitohs finished the game with 11 players. Which that didn't even help them as well. And then Cleary went through the dummy, threw off Ethan Lowe, and then went and scored that try. So, look, Rabbitohs do have a lot to work on. They'll verse the Bulldogs this week, which we'll get to a little bit later on in the segment. But, yeah, no, look, it was a dominant performance from Penrith. They're really solidifying themselves in the top 4 there. So, it's really, really good to see that. Now, we were talking earlier, Melbourne Storm 50 to the Warriors 6. Now, for me, Paul Momirovski, it was his first game for Storm, and it was obviously part of that loan switch between him and Harry Grant. But mate, he was fantastic. Pappenhausen scored 2 tries. Now, even seeing Cameron Smith at halfback, that was phenomenal. But look, Cameron Munster going down to that injury, that's
big.
3 to 4 weeks he'll be out with that MCL sprain. So, what do you think about that?
Look, I mean, they're kind of thin for playmakers as it is. I mean, to be honest, Jerome Hughes missed a week the other, not too long ago, and they brought in Riley Jacks. And I thought he helped them lose, if that's possible. There was quite a few plays where he threw terrible passes, made very questionable decisions as a half, and just made really, really bad plays that cost them points in defence and lost ball when they were in good position. So bringing Jackson, if they play him in the halves, and Hughes obviously is still coming back. Obviously he can play with that injury that he's playing with, but... I mean, they're already thin, and there's no doubt other than Cam Smith that Munster's their best playmaker. So even with him and Jacks, it was a bit, leaving something to be desired. But now that he's out, if they do bring Jacks in with Hughes or something like that, that's going to be big. Yeah. And obviously they have a lot of depth. However, they got the Roosters this week, so obviously we'll get to that shortly. But that's a really tough ask without your top players. Yeah. And even when you have your top players, you got to bring your A game to have a chance against the Roosters. So it's going to be interesting the next few weeks for the Storm because they've lost a few games even nearly full strength as it is. Yeah, that's not the same Melbourne we know. So really, really interested to see how they go the next few weeks without Munster. Yeah, absolutely. No, that's definitely a good point there, Billy. It's very interesting to see how they'll perform in the next few weeks without Cameron Munster there. But look, the Warriors, they were hopeless, and I really feel for the Warriors. Like they lost Stephen Kearney, that came out of nowhere, his sacking, and you thought they'd come out with a bit more than what they came out with. Obviously, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck and Tohu Harris are the heart of their squad, and
look, all right, it's two of those guys there, but look, they really struggled against the Melbourne side. Even they lost Cameron Munster, and Cameron Munster played 20 odd minutes with his knee that was finished as well. And the Warriors, man, like do you see any light at the end of the tunnel for the Warriors this year?
I kind of do, at least for this week, because I'm not sure we'll get up for the game against them as much as they get up for it, and we'll talk about that later. But yeah, it's tough, and I mean, I've seen a lot of teams across professional sports lose their coach. Either their coach gets fired or he quits on the team or something like that, and the team bounces back.
Yeah.
Terrible timing, I think, with everything going on in the world with Corona, how they're stuck out here to lose Kearney, who they all actually loved and respected. And this actually felt like one of those situations where you didn't think the team was going to come out and perform without their coach. Yeah. It wasn't one of those situations where you looked at it and you thought they were going to bounce back and try to prove a point. It seemed like they were pretty defeated. And the fact that they had to run into a Melbourne Storm team coming off a loss in the last couple of games, I mean, it's tough. And yeah, it's demoralising. And I understand they've made a request to have their family sent out. They've actually gone to the NRL and given them a 2-week period to say, we want our family brought out if you want us to stay here, which I totally get. It's been tough for them on and off the field.
Oh, that's right.
So in terms of light at the end of the tunnel, I think it really depends on who they bring in as a coach. If they stick with Payton and they can work with him and for him, that's going to be a big question. But if they can get back home, obviously given the situation right now, if they can get back home and play games from there and kind of get back to normality a little bit, I think it'll help their case. If not, it could be a very, very long year for them.
No, it's true. It's definitely true. Now, on to the next game, which was the second Friday night game. The Roosters 26 defeating the Dragons 12, and they didn't have Tedesco or Josh Morris, who went down late with a calf complaint. But mate, no Tedesco, no worries for this side. They threw a bit of a trick play here, putting Manu at fullback, which I've done before, and chucking Brett Morris onto the left centre. But look, for me, can I just say, again, Luke Keary was really the difference. You just saw it in how he really took control. And look, to be fair, Dragons actually played very well. That's probably their best game all year. Even they've won the last few games. I thought their best game of the season was against the Roosters on Friday night. They played with a lot more heart. They played with a lot more intent. And what I found, Bill, was that honestly, if without Luke Keary, there would have been a real chance of winning that game. I thought Luke Keary, he's just his experience and his leadership, and he's just such a quality player. That was really the difference at the end. Obviously, Brett Morris scored 3 tries. Joe Hargreaves was sensational as well, really leading from the front. But look, for me, as I said, the Dragons did play well, but Luke Keary was really the difference maker that game.
Yeah, I agree. And look, I mean, we can't give Keary all the credit, but you're right, he made a huge difference. I thought Waria Hargreaves was really close to making Team of the Week. One of the better performances we've seen from him. A lot more discipline and a lot more leader-type role where he led by example, not just talking. We know he loves yelling at people and barking orders and stuff, but I thought he really led from the front this week, and that set the tone for the forwards. Obviously, having Cordner there helps. But I mean, Keary off the back of that, I thought managed the game great. Obviously, it was tied and really close early in that second half. Could have gone either way at the time because the Dragons were putting a good run together, good momentum. And you know what? It's good to see since they lost to the Bulldogs a few weeks ago. And Mary McGregor was really on the chopping block, getting asked questions left, right and centre about can he even coach this team? They've rattled off a few wins, and then they've put up a really good fight against the Roosters, who even without Teddy and Morris were just great. I mean, when push came to shove, Manu was fullback, Morris could have been fullback. I thought they can all do a great job out the back there. And I mean, they proved that they were just the better team at the end of it, but definitely big improvement by the Dragons, and that's positive for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, moving on to the Cowboys 32 defeating the Knights 20. Now, mate, the Cowboys halves for me, they really stepped up. As a team, that was a phenomenal first half. And they played so well. They really seemed united, especially after Paul Green being under fire recently. And, you know, it's kind of similar to McGregor in the sense where they've been told he should move on by different legends of the game. But for me, I reckon the halves really, really stepped up, especially when they needed to the most. Look, the second half was actually terrible, but we'll get into that in a minute. But one thing that I really took from that game, apart from the halves really doing well and Tamalolo always leading from the front, mate, they shut down Kalen Ponga so well. They didn't let him play at all. They gave him absolutely no room to do anything. The time that he could only do something was when it was like a minute to go and they had that potential penalty try that they almost got rewarded. But they were really, really, really good, the Cowboys, that first half. They were exceptional. Hamilton Tilby-Fido at the back was really good as well,
Great.
I thought.
Yeah.
Missing Holmes, he's only 18 years old and he's 3 games in and he's really stepped it up. But for me, Newcastle were hopeless. Like, I watched like that first half when Cowboys knocked it on within like the first minute, I'm like, oh, here we go. It's going to be another Newcastle onslaught. But they knocked it on twice. Shibasaki knocked it on twice in particular in the beginning. The first 2 times he held onto the ball. And like, it wasn't good. Obviously, Adam O'Brien snapped it in that first half.
Yeah.
Absolutely lost his mind. Yeah. And look, they came out second half and put 20 points on them, but it's still not good enough.
Yeah, look, I mean, if you listen to Ricky Stewart, you can't win the game in the first half, but you can definitely lose it. And I think that's what Newcastle did. And look, I mean, that first opportunity Newcastle had when the Cowboys stood up to that test and defended it well. If you look at the numbers in the first half, and especially early in the first half, the Cowboys are leaking points like crazy. So I think it was a real point of emphasis for them defensively to start the game well.
Yeah.
And once they did, I don't know if it was a situation where the Knights came in thinking this was going to be easy. But I mean, you look at that Cowboys roster when they're full strength, obviously they are missing Holmes, but I mean, Maguire's back. He makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
To any team he's in. When he was at the Broncos as a leader, Cowboys as a leader, Taumalolo was rolling through them. They just got moving. And I mean, you're right, the halves stepped up. That's probably one of the weaker points in the Cowboys roster.
Yeah.
Not so much that they don't have talent in the halves, just real inconsistent. Their forwards are good. A lot of their backs are solid. Kyle Felt's experience, and I thought he had a great game. And once that roster comes to play, you're right. They shut down Ponga, and I think that some of the credit has to go to Paul Green. I think he had a great game plan, and that's a team where even though they're struggling, you can see the players really want to play for the coach.
Yeah.
They really want to play for each other.
That's right.
And they came out ready to play, and I don't think Newcastle was ready for it. And that's what happens. Even if you're a better team, you don't come ready to play and you get rolled like that. And it was crazy. I mean, they put up close to 30 points in the first half and Newcastle didn't look like they knew what hit them.
Yeah.
And even in the second half, they tried everything. They threw everything at the Cowboys and I thought they were really, really impressive. So great win for the Cowboys.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That was very good. And especially the funny thing about that was Adam O'Brien was actually saying let's not be complacent against the Cowboys like that. And man, they got rolled in that first half, as we've discussed. They got rolled, and And as I said, you're right in the sense that Paul Green actually came up with a game plan to shut out Cameron Ponga, and the halves I thought were perfect at that. They did so well in doing that, so that was really good to see.
Great.
In that as well. Now, moving on to your beloved Broncos, the Titans 30 defeating the Broncos 12. Now, Bill, before we get on to Brisbane, I've got to give credit to the Titans here, mate. 22-0 at half time. The big thing for me that I saw was Justin Holbrook putting Ashley Tatum in the 6. It didn't allow him to have to control the game. It didn't allow him to have so much pressure on him to create everything. Yeah. He just got to play his own game. And Jamal Fogarty moving into the 7 jumper, he's more of a halfback. And it really got the team rolling. Now, look, yeah, there were a couple of calls that could have gone either way. But for me, as I said, 22-0, they got out to half time, like similar to the blowout that Cowboys had against the Knights. Ashley Taylor I thought was great, but even Tyrone Peachy, it was his first very good game for the Titans in a very, very long time.
Yes, I agree. And I mean, look, if you look at the Titans roster, obviously it's not the most stacked roster you'll see, but they do have talent across the park.
Yeah.
A lot of talent where in their respective clubs before joining the Titans, they were regarded pretty well and they were just after money where their clubs were like, man, you're good, but we can't afford to keep you, such as Peachy, such as Cartwright. You look even at Taylor, he was a Bronco and he loves playing against the Broncos, against his old club, trying to prove a point that we should have kept him. And it's very rare that he has a bad game against us, and this was another example of it.
Yeah.
But they got talent across the park. I mean, even Proctor, great veteran leader, who I think the last few games has really stepped up.
Yeah.
Defensively against the Broncos, he was unreal this week. He shut down a lot of our stuff down that right edge. And, I mean, they came to play more than the Broncos. Yeah, there were a lot of contentious calls that I don't agree with early, but it's a very recurring theme for the Broncos, unfortunately, in this 5-game losing streak. We start terrible. I mean, if you look at our first halves, we've been nothing but horrible, except for the one good start we had against Manly, which we got run down by a terrible second half. And our second halves haven't been much better. This is the first time since the restart we've scored in the second half. So that's also definitely a worry. If you don't start well, you don't finish well. Obviously, the results are not going to go very well. But it was good to see them fight back a little bit in the second half. But again, we lost that game in the first half, and credit to the Titans. I know that last one was an intercept try, and that could have gone either way. Good play by Don, but I mean, hopefully the Titans can get rolling. They, again, on a very, very dubious call, beat the Tigers not long ago. That was very controversial, but they won that game. They've won this game. Hopefully they can, start using that momentum to start challenging better teams and improve in terms of consistency.
Yeah, no, agreed. Now, look, for me, with the Broncos, it was very embarrassing, playing at Suncorp Stadium as well, and you think with some fans going back there, it'll help them lift as a team. But look, mate, honestly, for me, they were hopeless. Yeah. I found them, they were just embarrassing. I don't think there are any going to be greater days ahead. Look, obviously, there's light at the end of the tunnel a lot of times, but Bill, mate, Tom Didden was put in the side to apply pressure to Milford and Croft, but he was out there playing hooker. Now, for me, I didn't think that was a great look. I didn't think that was great for Dearden as well, especially his first game in 10 months and he's slotting into the hooker spot.
I agree.
Now, look, I understand that you guys are short in your hookers at the moment. Now, Isaac Luke is the main guy at 9 and you got Turpin now and Corey Payau as well. Now, I just didn't feel that Dearden should have been playing hooker. But look, then again, I feel like with Brisbane Broncos right now, there are only 2 players that I can give credit to that play with their heart week in, week out. And that's your captain, Alex Glenn, and it's your forward, Payne Haas. Now, look, Bill, if I gave you the keys to the Broncos and I said, mate, fix the club, what do you do?
Yeah, I don't think we have enough time in this podcast,
Give me a minute.
I think TPJ plays with heart just like the others, not necessarily as smart or as disciplined at times. Obviously, he's not there because he's suspended from time to time. But when he's there, I think he kind of gives full effort. I don't think he likes losing as much as some of the other guys. But you're right. I wouldn't really be putting Dearden in at hooker. I think Luke's doing a pretty decent job, to be honest. I don't think any of this is his fault. And I think putting Dearden into the halves somewhere for either of them, to be honest, and getting him out there because he can actually manage the game. I know he's young, but he's great at getting guys in the right position and, directing guys across the park. Similarly, Tessie New got pulled towards the end for Osako, which I personally wouldn't have done. I thought that was kind of an interesting decision by the coach because, it's not going to change the outcome of the game. And if anything, that's going to hurt New's confidence. And he's a good young player. I know he made a couple of errors, but, across the park, a little bit average this week. I think Osako is probably better suited to the wing as much as he wants to be playing fullback.
That's
I think
right. I agree
he's
with that.
better.
Yeah,
there's a couple of guys like that in the league, like Watini Zelezniak and a few others who want to be playing that fullback role, but I think they're really much better on the wing. So moving Osako to the wing is probably something that I would look at doing. Getting Dearden in for one of the halves, either one, to be honest. We just got to get a combination that works because right now I don't think we've got a combination that works. Defensively, Milford's a bit of a liability at the moment. In attack, I'm not going to question Milford's skill and ability. I think he's a really skilled player. I don't know how hard he works, to be honest. However, I feel like he's really trying to force things. I think he's best when he lets the game come to him and he kind of just plays what he sees in front of him. But with all the pressure on him to perform right now, I think every time he gets the ball, he's trying to be a bit of a hero or make the home run play, which I kind of understand because he's under a lot of scrutiny at the moment. But you can't really do that every time you get the ball. And then when we really need him to do something, it seems like he doesn't really want to take it on. So picking and choosing his times, I think needs to improve a little bit. I know a lot of criticism has come his way. But overall, it's a very young team. We don't have many veterans. Obviously, Boyd, who's on the way out, is one of the veterans, and Alex Glenn. Obviously, Teo is a bit of a veteran presence we've brought in, and Isaac Luke as well. But a lot of the core guys and the talent we have is very, very young and immature. So I don't know if giving me the keys would help speed their experience and maturity process. It may take some time, but at the same time, until they get where they need to be, I don't think this is how we should be performing. So there's a lot that needs to change. And it's really, a lot of it's up to the players. And a lot of it's up to the coach to try to get that out of him. So we'll see what happens moving forward. Big game this week against a team we can beat. Doesn't necessarily mean we will beat them because, again, the Titans were a team we could beat and we didn't turn up. So it's going to be interesting this week.
Yeah, definitely. Now, the last game on the Saturday night, which was the game of the round for me, Eagles 25 defeating the Raiders 24. Now, look, Mate, we've got to call it as it is. Clint Gutherson really stepped it up. He was fantastic. Mitch Moses coming off the game, coming out of the game, in the first half with that calf injury, I thought would have halted the Eels, but mate, they just lifted. They got Takarangi playing in the halves, who hasn't done that in a long time, playing alongside Dylan Brown, who I thought really took control and was fantastic. Now, as well, the forwards were just exceptional. RCG ran for 239 metres with 23 hit-ups, had a good 30-40 odd tackles as well, no misses as well. He was fantastic. Junior Paulo, and we discussed earlier in the team of the round as well. So Ryan Madison, Sean Lane, again, just really showing that consistency and putting up those really big numbers.
Yeah.
Well, can I say, there was very poor refereeing as well. That's not, like that forward pass that Raiders got in the first half where Croker thought to Kotrick, I thought was absolute joke. Yeah. With the touchy, being right in that position as well, I couldn't believe he didn't see that. And they called a few weeks ago Trebojevic a forward pass against Para. And mate, look, it's a hard one. I'm sure they'll look at doing something like that next year in terms of ruling on the forward passes. But look, for the Raiders, I was surprised they stayed that close in the game.
Yeah.
They had 60 missed tackles.
Yeah.
Any team that has 60 missed tackles in the game, you think would get cop an absolute blowout. But Raiders always seem to find a way to stay in the contest. Charles Nickel-Klokstad was exceptional.
Fantastic.
He played so well. And look, Eels were very lucky to get out of that one. Yeah. Even though Mitchell Moses did go down, but mate, 60 missed tackles from the Raiders, mate. They're on a 2-game losing streak. What's going on there?
I mean, look, they've had a few lackluster performances. I can think of, obviously, last week against Manly, but they had a pretty average performance against Newcastle as well. Surprisingly, with the lineup they've got, they've been dominated through the middle a couple of times. Yeah. So obviously you saw it with Para, you saw it with Newcastle, even Adam Fanua-Blake and some of the Manly forwards went right through the middle, and obviously they only scored 6 points against Manly, so that middle passage is a bit of a worry for Stewart and the Raiders right now, which it shouldn't be with the guys they have. I think Papali's been playing good. Even Gula as a bench prop has come on and given them some go forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
They've got experience with Soliola in the lineup. They've got Elliot Whitehead. I mean, they've got enough there to be solid through the middle. I know Tarpanay is missing, but that's a bit of a worry. And you're right, for them to stay close was incredible. And you kind of feel for them at the end with all the momentum they generated, the comeback, the 2 quick tries to tie it and send it into Golden Point. To come that far and lose is obviously gut-wrenching. But to be honest, at the end of the day, I thought for most of the game, Para were the better team. So as much as Canberra deserved the chance at the end with how well they played the last 10 minutes, I think the right team won. As much as I hate to say it, I'm obviously not a huge Gutherson fan. Yeah. I'd be surprised if there were many people that listen to the podcast that are Gutherson fans other than my brother who obviously goes for Parramatta. Yeah. But he did step up. And I thought Dylan Brown, you're right, was good. Takarangi was terrible for them in the halves, but he did a job. I mean, he kicked the ball out on the full, which wasn't even close. And I mean, he obviously didn't help where Moses would have been a little bit more helpful. And despite that, they still managed to fight and get a win. And that's something different about this Para group. I know for a few years now they've had a pretty good team on paper, but their performances have been inconsistent. I don't think they've showed that much heart. Yeah. This year, I think, is very, very different. And everyone's firing on all cylinders. Even Jennings, I think, has had a bit of a revival this season. A lot of Para fans that I know were saying, look, we've got to move on from him. We can bring in better players. But I thought Jennings has been great. Even in that game, he scored. And yeah, Para looking like a pretty tough team. Obviously, their schedule's been a little bit weaker than some of the other teams. They've only really run into the Roosters in Canberra. Obviously, Manly, they got away with that one, which that was hard to watch as a football fan, but I mean, they've got a pretty easy schedule for the rest of the comp too. They've got Melbourne coming up soon when Munster won't be there and a few other easy teams. So they're looking like a lock for the top 4 right now, which is going to make finals footy pretty interesting. Yeah, obviously, they ran into Melbourne last year, and I still want to see them play Melbourne at full strength because it looks like they've come a long way. But until I see them put up a good performance against a Melbourne or a Roosters team, that's really the ultimate test. Until then, they're going to be a very good team still. It's just how far can they go this year? Yeah, that's true. Now, we'll wrap these 2 games up just quickly now. Sharks 40 defeating the Seagulls 22. Now, Johnson, Townsend, Moylan, that combination is getting better and better by the week. As long as Moylan is staying on that field. He's very injury prone, but I'm liking that again, his combination staying on there. Now, Sean Katoa,
in his words, he's trying to keep it sexy for the fans.
Yeah.
And like 5 tries in 2 games, he's actually doing really well.
It's pretty sexy.
Yeah, you can't deny it. You can't deny it. So look, the Sharks are starting to get a bit of a roll on, easing pressure off John Morris. I feel like those coaches that have been under pressure, slowly they start to win games, and now they're not talked about as much, except the Bulldogs, which we'll get to in a sec. But you can tell Manly really missed Tom Trbojevic and Dylan Walker in that game.
Definitely.
They looked very weak in the attack. They looked so startled and a bit hopeless, I found. But look, Adam Fanua-Blake was obviously the star, which we touched on. 2 tries. He's just becoming such a dominant forward and has been such an underrated buy for the Sea Eagles. And it's good to see him punching up performances like that week in, week out. And they played that game without Maita Tapau as well, I believe. And he's just rolling, and he's just doing such a good job for him.
Yeah, look, I mean, I don't think many people are surprised to see Manly without those players lose. Obviously, Turbo is huge. They actually flashed the graphic during the game of their win percentage with and without Tom Trbojevic, and it's about an 80% win rate when he plays and about a 43% win rate when he loses.
It does not lie.
Playing. So, I mean, that's a big loss. Walker's a big loss. Tapau was named. So, I mean, hopefully he's back to full strength really, really soon. But on top of that, something that's not really talked about much is they are missing Coruscant a lot this year. And look, I don't mind Danny Levi. I think he's very solid, but Coruscant just gives you... Personally, I think he's underrated defensively. He's very solid in that position defensively for such a little guy. But in attack, you can see Penrith right now with him there, major difference. And I think losing him when you already have Walker and Trbojevic out, that's like the whole spine gone. I don't think Lachlan Croker's really up for it as one of the main playmakers. And I mean, I've been pretty disappointed with Cherry Evans the last few weeks. I don't think he's been doing that much. And on his own, it just wasn't very good this week. Obviously, props to the Sharks. Katoa is playing well. I got to ask you, is Moylan a fullback, in your opinion?
Yeah. Look, honestly, thinking about it, no. I know I've just said yes, but I've just gone back on that very quickly. I've seen Moylan play fullback, and I've seen him play 5'8", but for me, Moylan's a 5'8".
Yeah.
I feel like he's more of a 5'8" than he is a fullback, but you've got Sean Johnson there and Chad Townsend. Now, I know that when Moylan first joined the Sharks, obviously in the beginning was a little bit sloppy at the 5'8" role, but game by game he started to really build up some pressure and started to play really, really well in the 6, but look, the injuries don't help, and he's very injury prone. And with the buys they made in Josh Dugan, and they had Bronson Cherry come through the ranks before he got done with Asada, and William Kennedy, and all these buys they got for the backs, and they've added Bryson Goodwin and Nene McDonald as recent times as well. So, look, they have no choice but to put him at fullback, but I think he's more of a 6 than a 1.
I agree, and he's one of those players, again, that's playing in fullback that I think is better in another position. And I know they have Townsend and Johnson. I just don't know how well they mesh together, and obviously this week against a depleted team they look good, but moving forward against the better teams, I'm still yet to see that on a consistent basis, and that's pretty much why the Sharks are where they are, because they've got a great lineup on paper. That's right. And I don't think John Morris is doing too much wrong, even though maybe someone else could be doing better. I just think that team is just... it's just a bunch of, not so much individuals, but I don't know how good the combinations are right now. And if that can improve going forward consistently, then they'll definitely pick up, from the position they are on the ladder now. But it will be very interesting to see when push comes to shove in big moments who takes over. Again, I thought Johnson was great this week, and if he's that guy, where they go to him to make plays, well, we need to see it more consistently. Ever since he was with the Warriors, he could be the best player on the field, or he could be someone that was in the crowd and you wouldn't have even noticed. It was actually Sean Johnson. He's just put on a Johnson jersey. So, I mean, he really has to step up consistently. I love him as a player, to be honest. I don't dislike him. I just think he needs to perform week in, week out. And if he does that, and that, combination with Townsend and Moylan gets going, then I think they'll be pretty good. Yeah, no, absolutely. Now, last game of the round, Tigers 34 defeating the Bulldogs 6. Now, David Nofaluma, Tommy Talau, they played fantastic. Josh Reynolds has been a very, very good player for them in recent times as well. Yeah. Another solid performance. Look, I don't want to spend too much time on this just because I say the same thing every week about the Bulldogs. They need some experience. And until they get some experience in their side, we're going to keep playing the way we are. Now, obviously, we got up to a 6-0 lead, and that's not much of a lead, but it was something. And I thought they could build off that, but look, too many errors, lack of discipline. I thought that
there was just a lot of heart there, but there's no attack. And there's only so much you can defend. But when you defend and you can attack, it works. But we have no attack, and we only defend, and we leak 34 points. And look, until we start getting some experienced players that we're in the market for, which I'll get to right now, then look, honestly, I think we're just going to be the same for the rest of the year, and even a little bit to next year, pending who we get in. But look, let's get into the news around the NRL world. Don't want to spend too much time on this one, but look, a couple of players that are linked to coming back to the NRL: Marika Koroibete and Curtis Rona. Now, Koroibeti's been linked to the Bulldogs, the Dragons, the Storm, and the Tigers. Union can't guarantee the contract at the moment. We all know what the situation is with rugby union. Pawasa Famasueli, he's actually had extended his stay with the Warriors. Roosters granted that until Roosters lost Sam Verrills and Victor Radley to those ACL injuries on the weekend as well. Yeah, shocking. It's all the best to those boys that are going through that now. So he was going back to the Roosters, and Warriors have then picked up Jack Hetherington from the Panthers to give a bit of stability there and give some depth to that side. Now, in terms of player chasing, the Titans are chasing Herman Sasa from Newcastle Knights to bolster their pack and put him in jersey 13.
Yep.
Obviously losing Jai Arrow to the Rabbitohs, so that'll be a very interesting thing. Now, officially this week, James Graham was released back to the St. Helens, and they didn't have a replacement. They didn't have anyone lined up. There was rumoured to be linked to Jared Wallace from the Titans, who hasn't been getting much game time.
Yeah, I heard that.
But they've actually been linked to Billy Magulius, who's been playing for the Sharks, but he hasn't really had much game time this year. Only played 1 or 2 games.
Yeah.
He's been chased by them, so that's going to be interesting to see what they do there. Now, Shannon Boyd, who's on a big contract at the Titans, $600,000 a year for 4 years. He's contemplating retiring from the game. He's had a bit of a fallout with Justin Holbrook. If they go through the retirement, it leaves a massive hole in their salary cap in trying to rebuild. He's on a big contract, and they'll have to pay him out the contract, which will be in their salary cap for the next few years, which is going to be very interesting to see how they handle that one.
For him to become a farmer, I believe. Is that
farmer,
right?
Yeah, that's right. He wants to become a farmer. So wants to go back. He's a country boy, Shannon Boyd, and he wants to go back to the country and just be a farmer and just take care of the farm over there. So interesting choice. It's not like he wants to go to Super League or another NRL club. He just wants to retire from the game altogether. And just a couple more things. Now, James Tedesco, Luke Keary are not for sale according to Nick Politis. He wants to tie them up by the end of the year and keep any other clubs from trying to approach them and trying to get them into their sides. Now, look, obviously, I don't think they'll go anywhere. I think he's massive. I think both players are massive for the Roosters, and I'm sure they'll sacrifice a little bit of money, no matter where other clubs are offering, to continually win premierships and be successful. So,
yeah, just on that, obviously there's always jokes thrown about the Roosters having a salary sombrero, not a salary cap.
Yeah.
But I mean, the way they've constructed their team, obviously Teddy and Kiri are going to demand a lot of money, and that's understandable. But I mean, the Morris brothers are not on much. I heard something this week about both Morrises being on what Anthony Don's on. Combined, they're about what Anthony Don's on. Obviously, they've had Latrell Mitchell leave, who was on some decent coin.
Yeah.
And they've just had Cooper Cronk retire, who was on $1 million. So for all the jokes that fly out there, they actually may have some money. And when, as ridiculous as it sounds, when they talk about chasing David Fafita, they may just have enough money to, offer him something decent without going over the cap with all the players they've lost recently. Obviously, they're still stacked.
Absolutely.
But they've done it in a really good way where they've offered guys enough, but not more than they need to. I think Titans are an example of people who've overpaid Peachy, they've overpaid Boyd, they've overpaid a lot of those guys up there, and now they're struggling. But I think the way they've done it at the Roosters is impressive, and they may have money to keep those players and still grab another guy or two. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with them, but they may just have the money. Yeah,
no, it's good. And the last thing for the news around the NRL world, we'll finish off with the Bulldogs. They've been linked to Nick Kotrick, who has a desire to play in the centres. Bulldogs want to throw some big money at him. John Bateman officially being released. This is his last year at the Raiders, and he's exploring his options. Bulldogs, Dragons, and Wigan Warriors are linked to getting John Bateman, the England second rower. So interesting to see what they do. But look, then again, Bulldogs are linked to every player, every coach, from every code. So it's a matter of who we get. But look, as I said, that's all the news from the NRL world. We'll get straight into
Eddie Jones.
Yeah, we've got linked to Eddie Jones as well. So Eddie Jones, Craig Bellamy, Wayne Bennett, we've been linked to in the last few weeks. So Look, I won't be surprised if there's any other coaches that are out there that we're going to be linked to and any other players. Look, I just want to see pen to paper and I just want to see some improvement for the
It's
Dogs.
good to see them trying, though. I'll give them that.
Yeah.
They're trying to make a change. They're trying to find the best way forward, which is a positive.
Yeah.
The last thing you want is to have a team that's really stale and going nowhere and they're not trying to do anything about it.
That's
So
true.
credit to them for that, at least.
Yeah, they're trying. Now, look, we're going to move on to round 8, the talking points and the ins and outs. Now, Storm versus Roosters Thursday night. Storm, the only change they make is Cameron Munster out for 3 to 4 weeks with the MCL, and Riley Jacks, who we spoke of earlier, comes in to that side. Now, the Roosters, obviously they lost Sam Verrills and Victor Raleigh to ACLs, so they'll be out for the year. Now, Jack Friend will come in into the starting jersey. Nat Butcher will come into lock and fill out that 13 jersey for the Roosters. Tedesco will be back at fullback. Manu and J Moss will go into the centres, and Ryan Hall will go out of the side with Brett Morris back onto the wing. Mitch Orbison will start, and Palasa Farmasuli, who's come back from Warriors on the loan deal, will be back on the bench for the Roosters. Now, look, for this game, I see Roosters by 6. What do you think?
Look, I think it'll be by about 10 to 12. I mean, I heard Nathan Brown and Gordon Tallis talking this week about loan players, how it actually works well for both teams. So obviously for the Warriors, they needed a player, but obviously when Robinson gets that player back, they've been getting more minutes, more game time than he could offer. So that helps develop the player for when they return. So I think obviously losing Radley is huge, but bolstering that forward pack by having their player come back obviously helps.
Yeah.
And as much as I like Melbourne and Bellamy for big games, I think Roosters are just going to have too much depth on this one with Munster out and, Melbourne dealing with a few other little injuries here and there. So I see Roosters by about 10 to 12. I don't think it'll be that close, but I don't see it getting out of control either.
Yeah. No, there you go. That's true. So that's probably up there as the game of the round for me. That's going to be a very, very good game. Now, the Raiders will go back to Canberra, which is going to be big for them. They'll take on the St. George Illawarra Dragons. Now, for the Raiders, Bailey Simonson replaces Jordan Rapana on the wing, who picked up a minor calf injury. He'll be out for 1 to 2 weeks. Yeah. Michael Oldfield comes into the starting side and moves Curtis Scott to the bench. He's been pretty woeful defensively, Curtis Scott, so Oldfield will come in and try to fix that up. Joe Tarpanay will replace Corey Horsburgh. He's out with a Lisfranc foot injury for the next 10 to 12 weeks.
Unfortunate incident there.
Yeah, and Josh Papali will need to pass HIA protocols to play this week as well. So
that's big for them.
So if he does go out, then they'll put Omo Gula into the starting side and they'll pick one of their kids to come through onto the bench there as well. The Dragons will be 1 to 17. And look, for me, for this game, I see Raiders coming back with a vengeance. They're playing at home. They're going to get a crowd there as well. We're going to get fans back into the stands this week, so that's going to be exciting for all clubs. But yeah, look, I see Raiders for this one.
Yeah, I got them by about 8.
Yep.
Obviously, a lot hinges on the ins and outs. Will Papali play or not? Because he's been huge for them lately. And no pun intended, he is quite huge. But I mean, his role and impact for that team is very, very big. Without him, obviously Gula moving in, he's reasonably capable. But what do you have behind that? So if they go that far in their depth, obviously with Horsburgh out as well, it's going to be interesting, but I think they will find a way to bounce back. Obviously, St. George's not as good as Para, and they've just played Para, and they really stuck with them. So I do see a Canberra win. It would be nice to see Canberra go back to how they were at the beginning of the year and how they finished last year, but obviously Bateman being out, Scott coming in and being really error-prone in attack and defence has been a bit difficult for them, but I see them winning at home, hopefully this week by about 8.
Yeah, sweet. So now Parramatta Eels will take on the North Queensland Cowboys. For the Eels, Jai Field will make his club debut for Para. He will replace Mitchell Moses, who's out for the next 2 to 3 weeks with that calf tear. David Gower will replace Daniel Alvaro on the bench. So he'll come in, I think, play his first, potentially second game of the year. For the Cowboys, Justin O'Neill and Tom Opicic will switch between centre and wing, respectively. And they've got Valentine Holmes under an extended bench, so he'll potentially come in and they'll force a change in the back line there, and then it looks like Opicic may be the unlucky man out in that one.
Yeah.
Who'd you go for this one? I got Eels.
Look, I got Eels, but I mean, if the Cowboys keep rolling, their forwards and the Para forwards is going to be a great matchup. I obviously think Para have the better forwards.
Yeah.
But I think Taumalola is the best forward in the game. You got Maguire directing them around the park, which as a leader, he's done a great job. And I mean, Jordan McLean and some of those other boys, they can play. So it's going to be interesting. I think in the spine and in the key positions, Para probably have a bit of an edge. Although with Moses out, it's going to be interesting to see how Brown and Gutho steer them around the park. But at the end of the day, I think Para will just have a bit too much for them. Although I'm really interested to see if Cowboys can keep that energy that they had last week against Newcastle and bring that to this game. Will make it really interesting.
Yeah.
I got Para by 10.
Para by 10, beautiful. Now, the Gold Coast Titans will take on the Cronulla Sharks. Tyrone Peachey will start in the centres, who will replace Dale Copley, and Bryce Carwell has been recalled to the bench. And for the Sharks, Andrew Fafita and Brendan Hamanueli keep swapping between starting and bench, so they'll stay the way they are. Fafita will start and Ueli off the bench, but expect to change at 3 o'clock for that game.
Yeah.
Expect to change at 2 o'clock in the late mail, where they'll probably switch between the two positions once again. Now, look, this game can go either way, to be honest with you, but I think I've got Sharks on this one.
Yeah, look, I mean, based on their last week's performances for both teams, it's good because they're both looking to turn a corner.
It's not easy,
It's obviously they've come from a bad start to the season, then obviously we had the Corona break, and then it's come back and been more bad for both teams. So both of them now have a bit of momentum going forward. The Sharks have put 2 in a row together, a really tight win against the Bulldogs and then an injured Manly team. This is the most full-strength team they're playing in a few weeks now. And obviously, as much as the Titans played really well this week, it was against my Broncos. So this will be a good test to see who wins. I've got the Sharks by 4 just because of their lineup. I think their lineup on paper, they're better.
Yep.
And with both teams trending upwards, I think Cronulla get it in a close one. But, I mean, it really could go either way, you're right.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, speaking of your Broncos, they'll take on the New Zealand Warriors this week over at Central Coast. A lot of changes the Warriors have made for this game. So Dave Fustua will come back on the wing. Patrick Herbert will go into the centres, with Gerard Bill going to the extended bench. RTS was actually suspended tonight for the week, so he'll be missing. So they'll do a bit of a backline shuffle there. Now, Wade Egan will replace Carl Lawton in the side who's going back to the bench. Jermaine Tunua-Brown and Ignatius Parsi will both start the game. They both came off the bench last week, but they've been both pushed back to the starting lineup. And with Faramusu Elliott heading back to the Roosters, Adam Blair will move to lock, pushing Tohu Harris to the second row, and Isaiah Papali'i dropping out of the side altogether. And Jack Hetherington will make his club debut off the bench. Now for the Broncos, Corey Oates has been dropped as one of the few changes that the Broncos have made. Now Jermaine Osako will move from the bench to the wing.
Yep.
Thomas Flegler and Patrick Carrigan will come back into the side after they've served their 1-game suspensions. But Joe Offahen-Gowie has been suspended for 2 games. Matt Lodge, who has been named as well, he didn't even train today. Mayo has come through to me that he didn't even train today, so could be interesting to see whether he'll be playing or not. But look, I don't know who to pick for this game. You guys are both due for a win. I want to say a draw for this one.
Yeah, look, I mean, if there could be no winner of a game, it probably would be this one.
Yeah,
which is ironic because last year we drew against them.
Yeah,
we went to Golden Point and nobody won. So
2 draws in 2 years. Let's hope for that.
Very ironic that 2 really, really bad teams drew last time. No one could win, and they're playing again. So look, I mean, we have more to lose, I feel. But with that said, like our roster shows, we're really young and immature, and that's not to say that they're not trying. I just think that even though we have more to lose, the Warriors situation, they probably need this win more than we do.
Yeah.
I mean, Seabold probably needs this win more than
else.
But for the Warriors, they've been stuck out here. It's not been very good for them on or off the field. And if they're going to have a game where they come out and win, this is it. And I saw them do it against the Dragons when, the competition was in its early stages. They came out when everyone thought the Warriors were going to be last. They came out and smoked the Dragons by about 20 points.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
That was obviously before a very different Dragon team we're looking at now. But you could see them get up for those games. I'm yet to see us do that. And I mean, I thought we would against the Titans. We didn't start great. The start for this game is going to be huge. Blake Green in this game for the Warriors, especially with RTS, is going to be huge.
Yeah.
And then that battle through the middle with the forwards. That's where I think the game's going to be won or lost, right through the middle. And if I had to tip, I'd like to say Broncos by 14. I'd like to say everything goes well and we'll get rolling.
Yeah.
But ultimately, if we don't get our combinations right, we don't turn up, I see us losing by about 4 or 6 points. In a close game, that's a bit of an ugly affair if we don't get it together. So, I mean, yeah, I'm really hoping we finally get a win. It's been over 100 days since we've won, and I know the Corona break's been part of that, but that's a long time. And once you start losing, it becomes a little bit of a habit. So we obviously don't want to see that develop any more than it already has. So yeah, I'm hoping the Broncos get up. But I mean, if we play the way we've been playing the last few weeks, I see the Warriors winning in a close one.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's a good insight there. Now, the Tigers will take on the Panthers this week, which will also be another game of the round contender for me. Tigers will go into this game 1-17. It's the same team they beat the Bulldogs with last week. And for the Panthers, they'll get Josh Mansell back, and he will take the place of Brent Maiden. Mate, this game can go absolutely anywhere. If I had to call it, mate, I'd probably go Penrith by 2. It's going to be a tight affair for this one. I just think that Penrith have the edge, and I think with Josh Mansell coming back, he'll be definitely make a difference for that side there. But look, as I said, don't really say this, with a lot of expectation. But as I said, Tigers Panthers, it can go absolutely any way. I think Penrith will go up by 2 for this one.
Yeah, look, I mean, it really depends on the Penrith defence, which against the Rabbitohs was great. But as you guys saw, obviously being a Bulldogs fan, the Tigers put nearly 40 on you. They're a very high-scoring team. They've been scoring over 20 points in a lot of their losses.
That's true.
So they score a lot, but they leak a lot of points. I'm expecting the Panthers to get some easy points, but I'm also interested to see if the Panthers defence can hold the Tigers, because they are high scoring and they score in a number of ways. They're a bit unorthodox, especially when Benji's there or when Reynolds is there. They kind of like to just throw the ball around and it's not as structured, so that makes it harder to prepare for. So if the Panthers can actually number up in defence and keep them to a low score, then I think they roll them. If the Tigers get rolling, once the floodgates open, Dewey at the back, Nofaluma, they got a couple of guys that are just on fire right now, and obviously Harry Grant at hooker. This, you're right,
Absolutely.
could go either way. It could be really high scoring unless the Panthers defence clamps down. I don't personally think the Tigers can stop Penrith, but if they can score with them, it could be an interesting high scoring affair that could be in the 20s to 30s.
Yeah.
But I mean, with how well Penrith has been playing, especially defensively, Ivan Cleary's got them playing like the Storm. They're really slowing the rucks down. They're pushing it to the limit of how long can we hold you down and slow you down and give penalties away to set up our defence. I think that's going to be a nightmare for the Tigers, and I see Penrith by 14.
That's very good. So, last 2 games, Seagulls versus the Knights. Now, for Seagulls, they get Moses Sully back, who will take place of Brendan Elliott, and Martin Tapau will be back on the side, who plays Sean Kepi in the front row there. Now, for the Knights, Bradman Best is back out of that 7-day isolation, so he'll come back and replace Gehamat Shibasaki. Now, Herman Essay will take place of Tim Gasby at lock, who is ruled out due to HIA, concussion, and Pasami Solo will come into the side on the bench there as well. Look, another game that can go either way. I'm going to go the Knights in this one. I'm
going the Knights because I think both teams have plenty of go forward, especially if Tapau's back. I really like Sirinen and Thompson in the back row for Manly. Adam Fanua-Blake is obviously killing it. He's rolling. But again, missing Turbo, missing Cody Walker. Dylan Walker. I mean, close to the line, they just don't look very likely. And I think both teams will be able to make meters and both teams will get their opportunities. I just really like Ponga right now, and Turbo is out on the other side with Cherry Evans not doing much. I just think Newcastle will capitalise on their opportunities a little better, enough to win the game by about 8 points. So again, could go either way. Manly could put it together after a bad loss last week, but I just think both forward packs are pretty solid, and it could be a pretty low-scoring, stingy game. But I just think Newcastle will have too much if they get down the other end, especially after the loss they just came off.
Yeah, that's a good point there. And for the last game to cap off round 8, the Bulldogs will take on the Rabbitohs. Now, the Bulldogs have had to make some changes here. Watenis Lesniak will move to fullback to replace Hopewadi, who's out for the next 6 to 8 weeks with that ankle injury. Now, Marcelo Montoya will come into the starting side in the centres to replace Kieran Holland. And Kieran Holland was woeful last week. And Marcelo Montoya, I don't think, is much of a better player, but he'll come into the starting side this week. Raymond Smith will be going to the other side in the centres, and the wingers this week will be Nick Meaney and Christian Crichton, who 2 weeks ago had an absolute shocker as well defensively. And we've dropped Jack Cogger for this game, even though he made about 50-odd tackles for us against the Tigers. And we've got a new recruit, Luke Thompson, named on an extended bench for this game. And for the Rabbitohs, James Roberts will start with Braden Burns moving to the bench, and the only change for that side. You think if there's a game that the Rabbitohs would kind of get things back into gear, it would probably be this game. With the change that Bulldogs have made, I can't I tip them every week and I'll keep doing it till I die, but I don't know if we can actually top the side like the Rabbitohs this week.
Yeah, look, I mean, everything you mentioned just points to a Rabbitohs win, a comfortable Rabbitohs win. And look, the Bulldogs, some games have been decent in defence. They don't score an awful lot, but I mean, if they can defend and keep the Rabbitohs from scoring points like Penrith did, then they may have a shot of keeping it close. But for the casual football fan, all those backs you just mentioned for the Bulldogs,
yeah,
they wouldn't know who you're talking about. And
Sure.
I mean, it's pretty thin out there, and that's where the Rabbitohs, I think, are pretty strong. Obviously, they got Latrell Mitchell, they got people like Johnston, they got Roberts coming back in, which Johnston, this may be his last season. He may be trying to prove his worth to the market so he gets a good contract elsewhere. So obviously the next few games for him are huge. Roberts being back in the lineup. Campbell Graham has his moments, I think. Dane Gagai, if he's wearing a Queensland jersey in his head, he'll be pretty good.
Sure.
But I think Reynolds is someone who just dominates the Bulldogs in the last few years.
Yeah.
And Cook came from the Bulldogs and you guys didn't want to keep him. So I think he will want to bounce back from the Penrith game to show you guys what you're missing out on. So to be honest, I don't think the Bulldogs can beat the Rabbitohs. I think the Rabbitohs can beat the Rabbitohs then. And they were pretty bad. A lot of errors, like you said, Latrell Mitchell, he copped a few really, really poor passes that he knocked on as well. I just think they were really error-prone, really ill-disciplined, which against a team like Penrith you can't get away with. A team like the Bulldogs, they may not make those errors. And if they do, they could probably get away with it a little bit better.
Yeah.
So I think that if everything goes well for the Rabbits, they're looking at a 20-plus win. Kind of like they beat the Titans a week or two ago.
That's fair.
But yeah, the big question for the Bulldogs is defensively, can they hold the Rabbitohs down and make it a low-scoring affair to give themselves a chance? Because again, with those backs you just mentioned, Bulldogs aren't looking like scoring 20, 30 points. So it's going to have to be an ugly, low-scoring win if they're going to produce a miracle.
Yeah, it's true. Well, look, Billy, thank you for joining us this week, mate. Much appreciated. Mate, it's a pleasure. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Now, just a couple of changes that we've made. We've actually jumped onto Facebook now, so make sure you like the page and share it around to just get all your NRL exclusive content on here. And we're now on YouTube as well, so you'll be able to see the podcast weekly on YouTube and under the name League Chat with the Stat. As I said, I appreciate the emails that I keep coming through, so if you have any more inquiries about any rumours you hear or any interest in joining the show, send an email to leaguechatwiththestat@gmail.com and we'll be able to squeeze in the time to get you in and just chat rugby league like old times. Billy, again, thank you so much for joining in. Ladies and gents, thank you for your time this week and we'll see you next week.